Yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, welcome to the show. We don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out and click subscribe to show your support. If you are a YouTube subscriber, click the bell to enable notifications so they let you know every time a new episode goes up. Ladies, gentlemen, are you sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 for the latest and greatest wrestling video game? Stop immediately and go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook. Create a wrestler, sign contracts, get in storylines, headline pay-per-views. You even can build a corporation from the ground up, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users, totally free. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, you want to shout out like my buddy John in Texas, then stop by our Patreon page at patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast. Sign up today. We have loyalty rewards. If you are a $15 a month contributor, you can co-host an episode with myself. If you are a $7.50 a month contributor, you can be entered into a drawing to also host one of our shows. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this show of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. If you have questions, comments, anything you'd like us to touch on in a future episode, give us a shout at the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line at 267-642-1160, and it is a talk-to-text service. You talk it, text it to me, and we will address anything that you're interested in a future episode. And don't forget to swing by our homepage at frowrestling.com. So the night's news and rumors, things going on in the world of professional wrestling. There's several things to get to. Going to start by going to a discussion that's been going on all week about Ric Flair. Ric Flair, I swear in the last year or two, has become one of the grumpiest people in all of wrestling. And I'm not trying to disrespect a legend like Ric Flair. But when you talk to the guy, there's been this ongoing dispute over the use of the term "the man" for Becky Lynch. Ric Flair seems to feel like since the 1970s and 80s, when he would use the phrase "to be the man, you got to beat the man" and all this other stuff, that he somehow is in control of the man. Well, it came out recently that the actual term "the man" is not patented or copywritten by him. He basically wanted some respect from WWE for using the term. And he feels like that term is something that is associated with him, and he's offended that they would pass the term off to Becky Lynch. Now, look, don't get me wrong. I get it. You've got a legacy. You've got an ego to uphold. But at some point, it really has to stop, because with many people, they would look at the situation and they would go, whatever, it is what it is. Ric Flair seems to take this stuff so seriously. And at the end of the day, if he's not going to go back to WWE at any point, fine. If you want to be that guy who's going to push every letter of the law for every trademark you ever thought you owned, whether you did or didn't, go for it, man. But you're just burning bridges with people you really don't need to burn bridges with. At the same time, if you have aspirations of going elsewhere and working AEW, Impact Wrestling, or wherever, then get over it. Move on. Get on to whatever the next chapter of your professional career is. If you're going to do the circuit where you're going to all the cons, the WrestleCons and whatnot, then do that. No one who goes to those shows is in any way, shape, or form going to have Becky Lynch denigrate the incredible accomplishments of your career. If anybody wants to argue that Ric Flair isn't one of the most legendary performers of all time, and one of the few men who could say that they really put a company on their back and were willing to work the incredible, grueling schedule that they did in the 70s and 80s when he was, at the top of the card, then they're a fool. But just because he did all that he did does not mean that he gets carte blanche on forever being the greatest of all time, which is the other issue we have now. There's different people who are making claims that people like Chris Jericho is the GOAT and whatnot now, and they support that with examples that they cite that make him very different from everybody else who's ever been out there, and Ric Flair takes exception to that as well. At some point, move on. It's like the people who get into the argument over LeBron James versus Michael Jordan as the GOAT. The game of basketball was different when Michael Jordan played than what it is now. The positions were played different then as they are now. So it's not something that should be compared. Now, the term GOAT, of course, people are going to throw it around. It's subjective. There's no metric that goes to calculate who is or isn't the GOAT. It's completely subjective. So don't get so burned up and hot and hollering about people who have a different opinion. I get it. If you're Ric Flair, you probably think you're the greatest thing since sliced bread or the greatest thing since Betty White. But at the end of the day, it still is an opinion. You got to move on and deal with it because it's not helping your persona or your reputation now to look like the grumpy old troll who complains every time somebody uses one of your old catchphrases. I think it's just so trivial. And I've seen people go back and forth on both Facebook groups and Twitter groups and chat feeds and blog posts all about this and how sensitive he is anymore. I don't know, man. If I was Ric Flair's age, I wouldn't be spending my time worrying about this kind of stuff. I'd be spending my time with my family, my fans, and really living up the life that you set up for yourself as one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time. It's just my opinion. News today about WWE and the Elimination Chamber. Rumor has it now that the WWE is planning to bring the Elimination Chamber to Saudi Arabia, to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, on Saturday, February 19th. Fightful Select is the ones reporting that. I don't know. There's always been conversation about how incredibly insane the size and mass of that structure is. But if they are able to deliver and get that to Saudi Arabia and put on an incredible show, I'm all for it. I actually find the Elimination Chamber to be one of the more compelling pay-per-view concepts they've had in the last 20, 30 years. You know, there's certain concepts that work and certain ones that don't. The Elimination Chamber, that works. Royal Rumble, that works. I don't know if Taboo Tuesday is really a great thing or not. You know, just saying. Money in the Bank, a whole other one that really works. But it sounds like that is what they are planning for the February 19th, which I guess we'll get some clarity after the Royal Rumble as to who would be in that match. I suspect after the Rumble, and we're gonna talk about the Rumble actually quite a bit tonight because it's a focal point of what's going on right now in WWE, and there's a lot going on. And depending on where you fall and what you feel is going to happen at the Rumble, the Elimination Chamber in Saudi Arabia could be a huge opportunity for somebody. Let's discuss that real quick. Right now, Big E is the favorite to win the Rumble. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm actually thrilled with Big E getting a chance to win a championship again at WrestleMania. I think his reign was cut short way too quickly, and I don't think people treated him like a legit champion. They treated him like a transitional champion, even though on paper it may have felt that way, but in reality, he was having top quality matches with every major superstar in the company. So I don't know how people look at him as being a transitional champion, but he's treated that way. Brock Lesnar is actually the second favorite, followed by Drew McIntyre, Roman Reigns, AJ Styles, The Rock, surprisingly on the list, Omos, Bobby Lashley, Seth Rollins, etc., etc. I would only assume that The Rock is on the list just in case they wanted to pull the Tribal Chief versus The Rock thing, if they were able to pull that off this year. I right now, as of this moment, I see the Big E thing being the most realistic. I think pretty much everybody has the same opinion about WrestleMania. By the way, before I finish that thought, the women's Royal Rumble winner right now, the odds-on favorite is Bianca Belair, followed by Bayley, Rhea Ripley, Sasha Banks, Alexa Bliss, Raquel Gonzalez. I don't know that I need to see Bianca Belair win it, but whatever. I think Bayley's, because of her ACL injury, has been gone so long, she would be a fantastic person to win it. But Rhea Ripley, I think, really would deserve to win it. And I don't know if that'll happen with her current situation with Nikki Ash going on, but we'll have to wait and see. And other matches announced for the card, of course, Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley. Lesnar being the odds-on favorite to win. And then Becky Lynch, the odds-on favorite to defeat Doudrop. Edge and Beth Phoenix, a minus 500 favorite over Miz and Maurice. There's nothing released yet on Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. I suspect that what will happen is one of two things. And this is where it gets hairy for me. And this is going back to the original point I was going to make with the Royal Rumble. If Big E wins a Rumble spot, you know that WWE does not want to touch the Reigns versus Lesnar match until Mania. But only one of them is going to walk in as a champion. Let's just be honest. They're not going to do champion versus champion when they have a two-night show. It just doesn't make good business sense. So you have to look at the rest of the picture. If Brock Lesnar does retain, are you going to have Seth Rollins win the Universal Championship so that you could have Brock Lesnar and Reigns for the WWE title and Seth Rollins defend the Universal Championship against Big E? And if you do that, what happens to Bobby Lashley, who is debatably the most dominant performer in either brand for the entire year, except maybe for Roman Reigns, which, quite frankly, if you're asking me what match I really want to see, It's Bobby Lashley against Roman Reigns. I think that would be the match that I would most be in favor of. But right now, when you look at the odds, it's not saying that. It's saying Big E's winning. And since we know that the plan originally was for Seth Rollins to win, and supposedly the original plan was for Seth Rollins to face Big E at WrestleMania to begin with, then all that makes sense. I did notice that Drew McIntyre is on the list. Now, of course, he's dealing with some serious neck issues. They've been nagging him for quite a while. He's still in a neck brace. And PW Insider is reporting that he has been wearing a neck brace at the UPMC Presbyterian Hospital in Pittsburgh this week, which is the place where WWE sends people when they either need surgery or significant testing. So I have to wait and see. Not sure if Drew McIntyre is going to be back in time for the Rumble or for Mania for that matter, if it's a serious injury. Got to talk some more WWE stuff. A lot of people having a problem with RK Bro losing the tag team championship to the Alpha Academy. I, for one, think it's a fantastic idea. The Alpha Academy has quietly become such must-see TV. I don't get me wrong, I actually love the old, goofy, playful, joyful Otis character, but this character, along with Chad Gable, is interesting to me. You built Otis up as a single star for a while there, and then you kind of turn your back on him. And now this has given him a great role to play as the enforcer of the tag team, give them the championships. I'm not saying I couldn't have gone for a little bit more RK Bro, but it was starting to run its course. The question is, where do they go from here? And do they turn Randy heel on Matt Riddle, or they swerve everybody and make Riddle go heel on Randy? I don't know. Is something else come between the two that leads to the split? I'm not sure. But in either event, I'm actually very much okay with the loss by RK Bro and giving Alpha Academy a championship run. I think they deserve it, and I think that they are going to be fantastic people to carry the championship heading into WrestleMania season. And then the last tidbit for WWE tonight, before we get into AEW discussion and other things, the returning superstars for the Royal Rumble match, which this will segue obviously into another conversation. It was already reported last week that there were going to be several people from WWE's past returning for the Divas Royal Rumble. So you've got Brie and Nikki Bella are supposed to return. Michelle McCool is going to be coming back. You're going to see people like Impact Knockouts champion Mickie James, who is a Forbidden Door person coming back. If I were her, I swear to God, the only way I'd do that deal is if they let me wear the Impact Championship to the ring. I think that would make a huge shock for WWE fans. Kelly returning, Aaliyah returning, people like that, Lita. But there was 11 other people that weren't filled yet. And I got to wonder if some of this is because of them cutting so many people. But it was also reported this week that Melina, who currently wrestles in the NWA, and Cameron, who was one of the Funkadelics, who hasn't really done a whole lot in the world of wrestling since she left WWE, are also rumored to have signed on for the Royal Rumble. You got to speculate that those two take up 2 more spots. That would leave 9. If Bayley really is returning, that leaves 8 more spots. If you look at the women's roster, there's not a lot of people who aren't already included. Are you going to put Doudrop in there when she loses to Becky Lynch? Are you going to put Alexa Bliss in there? She would obviously add some credibility and legitimacy and some shock value. She's one of the favorites to win. So perhaps Alexa Bliss joins the fray. I suspect she will. And that would leave 7 spots. So it'll be curious to see what happens. But then the big question shifts to, what about other Forbidden Door people? And it's been talked about all week that WWE is open to the idea of other Forbidden Door entrants into the men's Rumble. And who would that be? Now, for me personally, I'm a dream booker, just like all of you guys are. I'm all about Kazuchika Okada, Hiroshi Tanahashi, people from New Japan Pro Wrestling. I would be all about Kenny Omega, but that's not going to happen. I'd be all about somebody like John Moxley, but that's not going to happen. I'd be all about a lot of those guys. I think a lot of people have the consensus that Chris Jericho is the most likely Forbidden Door competitor just because he was on the Broken Skull Sessions last year, spoke about AEW on WWE Network and things like that. I think that would be a great pop for the wrestling fans. There are some people who feel like Moose, the Impact Wrestling World Champion, would be a great addition. You could bring him in, make him look strong, dump him out early enough that he doesn't look like a threat to the championship, just to give Impact a rub and give the shock value to the people. And obviously, Impact has a working relationship with WWE if they're so endorsing Mickie James going to the Rumble. So we have to see how that plays out. Another name that's been brought up is Nick Aldis, former Magnus, the former NWA World Heavyweight Champion. I personally would absolutely love that. I think he'd be incredible. There's even been some conversation about mending some fences by allowing Cody Rhodes to come in. I think there's no chance that happens. Not with all the trash talking he's done and references to Triple H over the years. CM Punk, not going to happen. I see there's a website that offers odds on different guys. Some of those are just not coming. Maybe you get a Paul White, a Big Show to come in. Maybe you get Mark Henry to come in. Maybe you get something like that, Tommy Dreamer. I don't know. But for me, I still think Chris Jericho is the most likely person to fill that spot. In addition, Jericho in the news because he has his Rock and Wrestling Rager at Sea Cruise, and this time the one that was planned for 2022 has now been postponed to 2023. We all know coronavirus is still going strong, unfortunately, and causing issues and concerns, so they've postponed it. The Four-Leaf Clover cruise, which is their fourth installment, will now set sail February 2nd to the 6th of 2023 on Norwegian Pearl from Miami, Florida to Great Stirrup Cay, Bahamas. So if you're interested in that, please jump on their website and try to grab yourself a reservation. They've already advertised several AEW talents to be there and tons of legends for meets and greets and signings and things like that and bands to perform. So it should be interesting, but it's a shame that the COVID thing is still causing so many delays and problems for other programming. And now that we're on to the conversation about AEW, we'll start with Wardlow in the news because earlier in the week it was said that people in WWE have been watching Wardlow and they really like Wardlow. You got to wonder, is that just, internet fan fodder or is that legit? But it sounds like from what Wardlow said that it's not going to matter. He's planning on staying with AEW till he retires. He's committed to them for giving him the opportunity. He's very thankful, and he loves what Cody Rhodes, Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, what they gave him along with Tony Khan, and he's not leaving the company. I'm okay with that if they start using the guy like a main event talent, but they haven't built him to be a main event talent yet. They've left him with MJF so long that he's kind of like a sidekick, and I don't like that. He's the Diesel to Shawn Michaels without ever getting the Diesel as world champion opportunity. I hope at some point he moves up. He mentioned that he's going to be appearing on TV more frequently this year. I think it's only a matter of time before he separates and breaks away from MJF, but that needs to happen sooner than later because at this point, it's kind of getting old. I'm just saying. What is not getting old is the new challenger for Hangman Page. I loved the return of the Murder Hawk. Look, I'm just being honest. The Murder Hawk monster, and Lance Archer's character, is one of my favorite wrestlers in the entire company, the entire business. Whether it's his talent in New Japan, go all the way back to Rock and Rave Connection when he was in Impact Wrestling. He's never had a character, even his crappy ECW Revival in WWE character, none of his characters upset me. I was cool with all of them. For a while there, I was trying to get an interview with the guy. We were trying to set some up, just couldn't come to a good time to do that. Maybe one of these days, but I am a huge fan. He was in TCW, Classic Wrestling, was their world champion before AEW. You can actually find that still on Facebook and on YouTube. That company went out of business, but he's always put on great matches, and he's been in the world title picture before in AEW, but never given that opportunity. I don't see him beating Hangman Page, but he's a great challenger for Hangman Page. You can't build Page up for all that time and then take it off him with a guy who you haven't strategically positioned to be world champion. But I do like the matchup, and I think it'll be brutal. I think it'll be, real down-to-earth slobber knocker, as JR would say, type of wrestling, and I look forward to it. I love a lot of what AEW is doing right now. I kind of like the Britt Baker aligning with Adam Cole because it makes sense. What I don't like and have never liked in any company is when groups get to be too big. This feels like NWO. She feels like Elizabeth in the NWO or something. I'm fine with her being with Adam Cole. I'm fine with Adam Cole being with Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. But I think when you start adding the four of them along with Nick and Matt Jackson and Kenny Omega, and you know what I'm saying? Like, it gets to be where it's just too much. It really is just too much. Right now, I'm not there. I'm really excited to see her get a main spot with some of the guys on television. She's been putting up just some of the most incredible matches of the last year and a half or so. She's earned her time on television. I just don't want to see her get relegated to almost valet status because of being aligned with Cole. she is a legit star and deserves a spotlight of her own, without having to be in potentially the shadow of her incredibly talented husband. So hopefully we'll see this evolve into something really interesting. But in the meantime, I'm happy with it so far. We'll have to see where it goes from here. And the final AEW tidbit, FTR has a match set up to go against the legendary Rock and Roll Express, who are beginning their farewell tour in 2022. They'll be facing off at Big Time Wrestling in Spartanburg, South Carolina on January 22nd. He posted on Twitter, at least Ricky Morton did, talking about how this was going to be the end. He and Robert Gibson have been together since the 80s, and they're going to start their tour to basically stop wrestling as a tag team. He is not leaving the profession. He'll be teaming with his son, but that Robert Gibson, it sounds like, is the one stepping away. They'll still be doing appearances and things like that, but they're retiring from tag team wrestling together. He wants to team with his son, work with the younger generation, et cetera, all that from his Twitter feed. And I respect his desire to work with his son. I think that's a rare opportunity a lot of people don't get, so more power to him. I just hope at some point he doesn't hold his son back by trying to pigeonhole his son in the matches with him, because that would be a shame. His son's an incredibly talented young man in his own right. And the last tidbit of news, not as much of a positive thing, Tammy Sunny Sytch. Sunny from WWE days back in the day, back in jail, incarcerated in Monmouth County Jail in New Jersey. She was arrested in Keansburg, New Jersey for possession of a weapon and making terroristic threats, according to TMZ. I don't know all the parameters behind what happened, but the young lady, and I say young, but the young lady has been really dealing with some struggles the last several years, and it's really such a shame. She had such a career in WWE. I feel like they moved on from her probably faster than she was ready to, and because of that, I think she's always been trying to chase the next, money-making situation to help her stay relevant. She has an OnlyFans account and things like that she does regularly now, but in the world of wrestling really hasn't done much of anything of any substance for quite a while. It's kind of a shame, fall from grace kind of story for somebody like her. Hopefully she gets herself together. The problem is these two charges carry between 3 and 5 years in jail and another year in jail if she's found guilty of both charges. That would be such a shame, and I just hope she gets the help she needs to try to get back on the right track. That's all the time we have for this episode, but check back with us next episode where we run down all the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks, as always, go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing any music or sound effects we use in our shows. Today's podcast sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this game from Beazle Games by going to frowrestling.com and clicking the icon in the middle of the screen to pick up your copy today. If you're looking for your next career move, you're considering college, university life, or you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our sister website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Dr. Fro. I almost said Mr. Fro. I'm Dr. Fro now. I got to get used to that. I want to thank you all for taking a few moments with us tonight. And until next time, take care. Have a great one. See you later.